Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Horizon. He watched the stars through the big window. Today was different from any other day. Today humans would meet aliens for the first time. The ship's computer made a soft beeping sound. "Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her seat at the communications desk. "We're getting a message from Kepler 7 station. The aliens are ready to meet us," Jake nodded. His heart beat fast, but he kept his face calm. The crew looked at him. They were scared and excited at the same time. Jake was their leader. He had to be strong for them. "Take us to the station, Tom," Jake told his pilot. The ship turned slowly toward the large metal station floating in space. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly among the stars. Dr. Ben Rodriguez walked up to Jake. Ben was the ship's science officer. He knew a lot about different planets in space. "Captain, I've been reading about these aliens. They call themselves Zephyrians. They're very powerful. They control many planets in this part of space. What else do we know about them?" Jake asked. Ben looked at his tablet. "They can read minds. They talk to each other without speaking, and they think they're better than everyone else." Jake frowned. This could be trouble. Humans couldn't read minds. They had to use words to talk. Maybe the aliens would think humans were stupid. The UES Horizon docked with Kepler 7 station. Jake put on his best uniform. Amy, Ben, and 2 security guards came with him. They walked through the station's halls. The walls were white and clean. Strange lights glowed blue and green. They reached a big room with a round table. On the other side stood the aliens. Jake tried not to stare, but it was hard. The Zephyrians were tall and thin. Their skin looked like crystal. It was clear and sparkled with light. Their eyes were big and silver. They wore long robes that seemed to float around them. One alien stepped forward. He was taller than the others. His crystal skin was darker, almost blue. "I am High Counselor Thex Mordan," he said without moving his mouth. His voice came into Jake's head. "I speak for the Zephyrian Empire." Jake felt strange. It was like someone was poking around inside his brain with cold fingers. He didn't like it, but he tried to stay calm. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. I represent Earth and humanity." Morden looked at Jake for a long time. His silver eyes seemed to dig into Jake's mind. Jake felt pressure building in his head. It hurt a little. The alien was trying to read his thoughts and control him, but Jake was stubborn. He had always been stubborn, even as a child. He looked back at Mordan. He didn't let the alien push him around in his own mind. After a few seconds, Morden seemed surprised. "Most aliens probably gave up quickly." "Interesting," Morden said in Jake's head. "Your species has some mental strength, but you are still young and weak." Jake noticed another alien standing behind Mordan. This one was different. She was shorter than the others. Her crystal skin was lighter, almost white. She stood in the shadows and never looked directly at anyone. When other aliens looked at her, she turned away. "Who is that?" Jake asked, pointing to the shy alien. Mordan made a sound like laughing, but it wasn't nice. "That is Ambassador Lyra Veltar. She will pretend to negotiate with you. We thought it was fitting to send someone as weak as your species to talk to humans." The other aliens made the same mean laughing sound. Lyra's crystal skin seemed to dim. She looked hurt but said nothing. Jake felt angry. He didn't like bullies. It didn't matter if they were human or alien. "I'd be happy to work with Ambassador Lyra," he said. This made Mordan angry. His crystal skin turned darker blue. "You do not understand, human. She is defective. She cannot even look at others properly. She is not worthy of respect." Jake watched Lyra. She stood very still. Her hands were shaking a little. Jake could tell she was upset, but she was trying to hide it. "In that case," Jake said, "she and I should get along well. Humans don't think looking at someone makes you better than them." The room went quiet. All the aliens stared at Jake. Even Lyra looked up, but quickly looked away again. Mordan's eyes got brighter. "You will learn, human. In this galaxy, the strong look at the weak. The weak look away. This is how it has always been. This is how it will always be," Jake smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile he made when someone told him something was impossible. "We'll see about that." Amy stepped closer to Jake. She had been watching everything. She was good at reading people, even alien people. "Captain," she whispered, "I think there's more going on here than they're telling us." Jake nodded. He could see it too. Lyra wasn't weak. She was hurt. There was a big difference. Someone who was weak couldn't stand in a room full of bullies and keep their dignity. But someone who was hurt might look weak to people who didn't understand. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Mordan talked about the Zephyrian Empire. He told Jake about their many planets and their powerful armies. He made it clear that humans were small and unimportant, but Jake kept watching Lyra. Sometimes she would start to speak, then stop when Mordan looked at her. She knew things. Jake could tell. She wanted to say something, but she was scared. When the meeting ended, Mordan said, "We will talk again tomorrow. Perhaps by then you will understand your place in this galaxy." The aliens left the room, all except Lyra. She stayed behind looking at the floor. Jake waited for his crew to leave. Then he walked over to her. "Ambassador Lyra," he said softly. She looked up quickly, then looked away. "You should not talk to me, Captain Morrison. I am not important." "I think you're wrong about that," Jake said. "I think you're the most important person in that room." Lyra's crystal skin brightened a little. "Why do you say that?" Jake smiled. This time it was a real smile. "Because you're the only one who seems to care about doing the right thing." For the first time, Lyra looked directly at Jake. Her silver eyes were sad but hopeful. "Your species is very strange, Captain Morrison." "Thank you," Jake said. "I take that as a compliment." As Jake walked back to his ship, he thought about what he had seen. The Zephyrians were powerful, but they were also cruel. They hurt their own people. That was always a sign of weakness, not strength. Amy was waiting for him on the bridge. "What do you think, Captain?" Jake looked out at the stars. "I think we're about to learn something new about what it means to be strong." The next morning, Jake woke up early. He couldn't stop thinking about Lyra and how the other aliens treated her. He went to find Dr. Ben Rodriguez in the ship's lab. Ben was looking at his computer screen. Pictures of Zephyrian cities and planets covered the display. "Morning, Captain," Ben said. "I've been studying their culture all night." "What did you find?" Jake asked. Ben pointed at the screen. "The Zephyrians are obsessed with mental power. Their whole society is built around who can control other people's minds. The stronger your telepathic abilities, the higher your rank." Jake sat down next to Ben. "And if you're weak, they send you away, to distant planets where no one important lives. Some Zephyrians are even exiled completely. They become outcasts." Ben switched to a new screen. "Look at this. They call it mind blindness. It's when a Zephyrian can't handle telepathic contact without getting sick or hurt." Jake thought about Lyra. "That explains a lot." "There's more," Ben said. "I found records of other first contact missions. The Zephyrians always send their weakest diplomats to meet new species. It's an insult. They're saying the new species isn't worth a real ambassador." Jake felt angry again. "So Lyra got this job because they think we're not important." "Exactly. But Captain, there's something strange. Lyra isn't stupid. Her records show she's actually very smart. She speaks 12 different languages. She's studied dozens of alien cultures. She just can't do the mind control thing without it hurting her." Jake stood up. "I want to talk to her alone." "Can you arrange a meeting?" Ben nodded. "The station has an observation deck. It's supposed to be neutral ground. No weapons, no guards. Just talking." 2 hours later, Jake found himself in a large room with windows looking out at space. Stars sparkled like diamonds on black cloth. A few ships moved slowly in the distance. Lyra was already there. She stood near the far window looking out at space. She had positioned herself so her back was to the door. Jake realized she was trying to avoid eye contact with anyone who came in. "Ambassador Lyra," Jake said quietly. She turned around quickly, then immediately looked down at the floor. "Captain Morrison, you should not be here. If Counselor Mordan finds out—" "Let me worry about Mordan," Jake said. He walked slowly toward her but stopped several feet away. He didn't want to make her nervous. "May I ask you something?" Jake said. Lyra nodded, still looking at the floor. "Why do you look away when people look at you?" Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "In my culture, looking directly at someone is a challenge. It means you want to dominate their mind. When two Zephyrians look at each other, the stronger one forces the weaker one to look away. It shows who is in control. And you can't do that?" "I can read minds," Lyra said softly. "But when I try to dominate someone, I feel their pain. I feel their fear and sadness. It hurts me so much I get sick. High people say this makes me defective." Jake felt sorry for her. "What do you feel when you read my mind?" Lyra looked up at him, surprised by the question. You really want to know? Yes, Lyra closed her eyes. Jake felt that cold poking feeling in his head again, but this time it was gentler. After a few seconds, Lyra opened her eyes. They were full of tears, I feel. Confusion, she said. When most species meet us, they feel fear or anger or the desire to fight. But you feel curious, and something else. You feel sorry for me. Why would you feel sorry for someone you just met? Jake smiled. Because I can see that you're hurting, and I don't like it when people hurt. But I am your enemy, Lyra said. My people control this part of space. We could destroy your planet if we wanted to. Are you my enemy? Jake asked. Lyra thought about this. I don't know. I was told to negotiate with you. To learn about humans so we can decide if you're dangerous. But I don't feel like you're dangerous. We're not, Jake said. We just want to explore space and meet new people. We want to learn about other cultures. That's what I told Counselor Morden, Lyra said. But he said I was being naive. He said all species want power and control. He said humans would try to take our planets if we let them. Jake shook his head. We have our own planet. We don't want to take yours. There's plenty of space for everyone. Lyra looked confused. But if you don't want to conquer us, what do you want? Friendship, Jake said simply. Trade, maybe we can teach each other things. Humans are good at building things. Maybe Zephyrians are good at other things. We could help each other. Help each other? Lyra repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. Yes. Where I come from, when someone is good at something, they teach others. When someone needs help, others help them. We work together. But how do you decide who is in charge? Lyra asked. Jake thought about this. Well, on my ship, I'm the captain. So I make the big decisions. But I listen to my crew. If Amy knows more about communications than I do, I listen to her advice. If Ben knows more about science, I listen to him. Being in charge doesn't mean you know everything. Lyra stared at him. You admit that others know more than you? Of course. I'm good at leading people and making decisions under pressure, but I'm not the smartest person on my ship. I'm not the best pilot or the best scientist. I'm just good at bringing everyone together and helping them do their best work. This is impossible, Lyra said. If you admit others are better than you, they will take your power away. Why would they do that? Jake asked. We're all on the same team. We all want the ship to succeed. If they took my power away, who would make the hard decisions? Who would take responsibility when things go wrong? Lyra sat down in a chair near the window. She looked tired. I don't understand your species, Captain Morrison. Jake sat down across from her, but not too close. Can I tell you something about humans? Yes, we used to be like the Zephyrians. Thousands of years ago, humans fought each other all the time. The strong ruled the weak. People were cruel to each other. We had wars and slavery and terrible things. What changed? Lyra asked. We learned that being cruel made everyone weaker, including the cruel people. We learned that helping each other made everyone stronger. It took a long time. We made many mistakes. But eventually, we figured out that cooperation works better than domination. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said, The other ambassadors think I'm weak because I feel other people's pain. They say a true Zephyrian should not care about the suffering of others. What do you think? Jake asked. I think feeling pain means you understand what pain is. And if you understand pain, you try not to cause it. But my people say this makes me unfit for leadership. Jake leaned forward. Lyra, what if I told you that what your people call weakness, we would call wisdom? I don't understand. The ability to feel others' pain, the desire not to cause suffering, that's not weakness. That's compassion. And compassion is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. Lyra's crystal skin began to glow brighter. But how can compassion be strength? Strength is about power and control. No, Jake said. Real strength is about helping others become strong too. Real power is not the ability to hurt people. Real power is the ability to heal them. For the first time since they had met, Lyra looked directly into Jake's eyes. She didn't look away. Your species is very strange, Captain Morrison. Jake smiled. You keep saying that. I'm starting to think it's a good thing. They sat together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Jake could see that Lyra was thinking hard about everything he had said. Captain, she said finally, tomorrow Counselor Mordan wants to show your people our traditional greeting ceremony. It's called the Harmony of Dominance. He wants to prove that Zephyrians are superior to humans. What does it involve? Jake asked. Multiple Zephyrians will try to read your minds at the same time. Most species either submit immediately, or become unconscious from the mental pressure. It's very painful. Jake thought about this. What happens if we don't submit or become unconscious? That has never happened before, Lyra said. But I think Mordan hopes it will break your minds permanently. He wants to show other alien species what happens when they defy the Zephyrian Empire. Jake stood up. Thank you for warning me. Why are you thanking me? Lyra asked. I probably shouldn't have told you. Because, Jake said, you did the right thing even though it was dangerous for you. That takes real courage. As Jake walked back to his ship, he thought about what Lyra had told him. Tomorrow would be a test. Not just for humans, but for everything he believed about strength and cooperation. He found Amy and Ben waiting for him on the bridge. How did it go? Amy asked. We need to prepare for tomorrow, Jake said. And I have an idea. But you're not going to like it. The next day came too quickly. Jake stood with his crew in the main conference room on Kepler 7 station. The room was bigger than yesterday. More aliens had come to watch the ceremony. They stood around the walls like judges in a courtroom. Counselor Mordan stood in the center of the room. 5 other Zephyrians stood with him in a circle. Their crystal skin glowed bright blue. Their silver eyes looked excited and mean. Today humans will learn their place, Mordan announced. His voice echoed in everyone's head. You will experience the harmony of dominance. This is how we greet all new species. This is how we show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire. Jake looked at his crew. Amy stood next to him, calm and ready. Ben was nervous but determined. Tom the pilot was trying to look brave. The 2 security guards, Lisa and Mike, stood straight and tall. What exactly will happen? Jake asked. We will enter your minds together, Mordan said. We will read your thoughts, your memories, your fears. We will show you that resistance is useless. Most species submit within seconds. The lucky ones simply lose consciousness. And if we don't submit or lose consciousness? Jake asked. Mordan's crystal skin grew darker. That has never happened. But if it did, the mental pressure would probably drive you insane. Your minds would break permanently. Jake noticed Lyra standing near the back of the room. She looked worried and scared. She caught his eye for a moment, then looked away quickly. Are you ready to begin? Mordan asked. Jake looked at his crew one more time. Remember what we talked about, he said quietly. Trust each other. Trust the plan. The Zephyrians began their ceremony. They closed their eyes and their skin glowed brighter. Jake felt the familiar cold sensation in his head, but this time it was much stronger. It felt like ice water flooding his brain. The mental pressure was incredible. Jake could feel the aliens trying to push into his mind, trying to read his thoughts and control him. Most people would have fallen to their knees or passed out, but Jake had prepared for this. The night before, he had talked to his crew about something humans were very good at: working together. Instead of trying to resist the telepathic attack, Jake did something unexpected. He opened his mind completely. He let the aliens see his thoughts, but he also shared them with his crew. Amy felt Jake's calm determination and shared her own steady courage. Ben added his curiosity and love of learning. Tom contributed his loyalty and trust. Lisa and Mike shared their protective instincts and willingness to sacrifice for others. The Zephyrians had expected to find individual minds they could break one by one. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before: a group mind that stayed individual while becoming stronger together. Jake felt his crew's thoughts mixing with his own, but nobody lost themselves. Amy was still Amy, Ben was still Ben, but they were also part of something bigger. They were supporting each other in a way the Zephyrians couldn't understand. The aliens pushed harder. Their skin glowed so bright it hurt to look at them. But the human minds didn't break. They bent like trees in a strong wind, supporting each other so none of them would fall. Then Jake did something that shocked everyone in the room. He started sharing specific memories with the Zephyrians, but not memories of fear or weakness, memories of humans helping each other. He shared the memory of a group of strangers working together to save people after an earthquake. He showed them doctors traveling to distant planets to heal sick aliens they had never met. He shared images of human teachers spending their own money to help poor children learn to read. Amy joined in, sharing memories of her grandmother who had taken care of sick neighbors during a plague. Ben shared memories of scientists working together to solve problems, celebrating each other's discoveries instead of competing. The Zephyrians saw thousands of images of humans choosing cooperation over competition, helping strangers, sacrificing for others. They saw a species that had learned to be strong by making others strong too. Morden's eyes opened wide. His glowing skin flickered like a broken light. The other Zephyrians began to stumble backward. They had never experienced anything like this. "Impossible," Morden said out loud. His voice sounded weak and confused. "You are showing us weakness, but you are not weak. You are showing us submission, but you are not submitting. How is this possible?" Jake smiled. The mental pressure was still there, but it felt lighter now. "We're not showing you weakness, counselor. We're showing you a different kind of strength." "There is only one kind of strength," Morden said, but he sounded less sure than before. "No," Jake said. "There are many kinds. The strength to dominate others is just one kind. But there's also the strength to lift others up. The strength to admit when you're wrong. The strength to ask for help when you need it." The other aliens in the room were murmuring to each other. They had never seen anything like this. The humans were not winning the telepathic battle, but they were not losing either. They were doing something completely different. Amy stepped forward. "In our culture, we have a saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. It means when one person succeeds, everyone benefits." Ben added, "We learned long ago that making other people weak doesn't make you strong. It just makes everyone weaker, including you." Morden looked around the room. The other Zephyrians were staring at the humans with confusion and something that might have been respect. This was not what he had planned. "You are trying to trick us," Morden said. "No species is naturally cooperative. All beings want power and control." Jake shook his head. "Maybe that's true for some species. But humans learned that power shared is power multiplied. When we help others become strong, we become stronger too." "But how do you maintain order?" asked one of the other Zephyrians. "If everyone is equal, who makes decisions?" "Being equal doesn't mean being the same," Amy explained. "I'm good at communications. Captain Morrison is good at leadership. Ben is good at science. We each contribute what we do best." "But someone must be in charge," the alien insisted. "Yes," Jake said. "I'm in charge of my ship. But that doesn't mean I'm better than my crew. It just means I have a different job. My job is to make good decisions and take responsibility for the consequences. Their job is to be the best at what they do and help me make those good decisions." Tom spoke up for the first time. "The captain doesn't tell me how to pilot the ship. He tells me where he wants to go, and I figure out the best way to get there. He trusts me to do my job well," Lisa added. "And if I see danger that the captain doesn't see, I tell him. He doesn't get angry because I questioned him. He thanks me for keeping everyone safe." The Zephyrians looked at each other with confusion. Their whole society was built on the idea that admitting someone else knew more than you was a sign of weakness. But the humans were describing a system where admitting others' expertise made the whole group stronger. Lyra stepped forward from the back of the room. This surprised everyone, including Mordan. "Is it true that your leaders ask for advice from their subordinates?" "All the time," Jake said. "A good leader surrounds himself with people who are smarter than he is in different areas. Then he listens to them." "But what if they try to take your power?" Lyra asked. Jake looked confused. "Why would they want my job?" "Being a leader is hard work and big responsibility. Most people would rather be really good at what they love doing than worry about everyone else's problems." Morden's skin was flickering between blue and white. He was getting desperate. "You are lying. No species acts this way. You are trying to make us weak so you can conquer us." "Counselor," Jake said gently, "if we wanted to conquer you, would we come here with one ship and 6 people? Wouldn't we bring weapons and armies?" "This is a trick," Mordan insisted. Amy walked over to Lyra. "Ambassador, you've been reading our minds for 2 days. Do you sense any deception? Any hidden plans to hurt your people?" Lyra closed her eyes and gently touched Amy's mind. After a moment, she opened her eyes and looked directly at Mordan. It was the first time anyone had seen her make direct eye contact with another Zephyrian. "There is no deception, counselor," Lyra said. Her voice was clear and strong. "They truly believe what they are saying, and their memories support their words. I have seen their history. They really did learn to cooperate instead of dominate." "Impossible," Morden said, but his voice was weak. "I have also seen something else," Lyra continued. She was still looking directly at Mordan, though her hands were shaking. "I have seen their emotions. When they look at me, they do not feel disgust or pity. They feel respect." The room went completely silent. Jake stepped closer to Lyra, but not close enough to make her nervous. Ambassador Lyra, you said yesterday that you feel others' pain when you read their minds. May I ask you something? Lyra nodded. When you read our minds just now, did it hurt you? Lyra thought about this. A look of wonder crossed her face. No, she said softly. For the first time in my life, reading minds didn't hurt. Because your minds aren't trying to hurt or dominate. They're trying to understand and connect. She turned to face the other Zephyrians in the room. What if the pain I feel isn't a defect? What if it's because our minds are doing something wrong? What if minds aren't supposed to hurt each other? Mordan's crystal skin went pale. That's enough. This ceremony is over. The humans have passed our test. We will discuss trade negotiations. 3 days passed peacefully. Lyra visited the UES horizon every day, watching how the human crew worked together. She was amazed by what she saw. She watched Amy and Ben disagree about the best way to communicate with a distant planet. Instead of fighting or one person dominating the other, they talked through their ideas. They found a solution that was better than either of their original plans. She saw Jake admit he didn't understand a complex scientific problem. Instead of pretending to know everything, he asked Ben to explain it. Ben was happy to teach, and Jake learned something new. Most surprising of all, she watched Tom make a mistake while flying the ship. He accidentally came too close to an asteroid. Instead of punishing him, Jake asked what went wrong and how they could prevent it in the future. Tom was grateful, not afraid. In my culture, Lyra told Jake as they stood on the ship's bridge, making a mistake in front of your superior would mean exile or worse. Here, making a mistake means you're learning, Jake said. The only people who never make mistakes are people who never try anything new. Lyra was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what you said, about different kinds of strength. I think I'm beginning to understand, but their peaceful time was ending. That afternoon, an urgent message came from Kepler 7 station. Counselor Mordan demanded an immediate meeting with the human delegation. When Jake and his crew arrived at the station, they found the main conference room filled with aliens. Not just Zephyrians, but representatives from dozens of different species. Some looked like tall trees with many arms. Others were small and covered in fur. A few were almost human-looking, but with strange-colored skin. Mordan stood in the center of the room. His crystal skin was glowing bright red, which Jake had learned meant he was very angry. People of the galaxy, Mordan announced, we have gathered here to witness something unprecedented. The humans claim their weakness is actually strength. They claim cooperation is better than domination. Today we will test this claim. Jake felt a cold worry in his stomach. What kind of test? A trial of truth, Mordan said. It is an ancient Zephyrian tradition. 2 representatives will engage in mental combat. The winner's species gains respect and trading rights in this sector. The loser's species is marked as inferior and banned from our space. Amy grabbed Jake's arm. Captain, you don't have to do this. Actually, he does, said a new voice. A tall alien that looked like a walking crystal entered the room. I am Judge Kexavar of the Galactic Council. The Zephyrians have made this challenge official. Captain Morrison must either accept or humanity will be marked as cowards and banned from this entire region of space. Jake looked around the room. Dozens of alien eyes were watching him. Some looked curious, others looked hungry for violence. In the back, he saw Lyra. She looked terrified. What are the rules? Jake asked. Simple, Mordan said. 2 minds enter mental combat. Each tries to break the other's will and force them to submit. The first one to surrender or lose consciousness loses. The battle continues until there is a clear winner. Judge Kexavar added, the Zephyrians have never lost a trial of truth. Their telepathic abilities are far superior to most species. Jake thought about this. He knew he couldn't win a telepathic battle against Mordan. The alien was too strong. But maybe... I accept the challenge, Jake said. But I want to choose my opponent. Mordan laughed. You want to choose? Very well, human. Choose whichever of us you think is weakest. It will not matter. Jake looked directly at Lyra. I choose Ambassador Lyra Veltar. The room exploded with noise. Aliens were shouting and arguing. Mordan's skin went from red to almost black with rage. Impossible, Mordan yelled. You cannot choose her. She is defective. She cannot properly engage in mental combat. Why not? Jake asked. Is she not a Zephyrian? Does she not have telepathic abilities? Judge Kexavar looked confused. The human has the right to choose his opponent from any Zephyrian present. If this Lyra is unable to participate, then the Zephyrians must admit they brought someone incompetent to represent them. This put Morden in an impossible position. If he said Lyra couldn't fight, he would be admitting the Zephyrians had sent an incompetent representative to negotiate with humans. That would be humiliating. She can participate, Morden said through gritted teeth, but when she loses quickly, do not blame us for the brevity of the contest. Jake looked at Lyra. She was staring at him with wide, frightened eyes. She walked over to him slowly. Captain Morrison, she whispered, you don't understand. I cannot do this. The mental combat will hurt me too much. I will lose consciousness immediately. Trust me, Jake said quietly. Remember what you told me about reading our minds during the ceremony? How it didn't hurt because we weren't trying to dominate. Lyra nodded. I'm not going to try to dominate you either, Jake said. I'm going to try something else entirely. Judge Kexvar raised his hand for silence. The trial will now begin. Combatants, take your positions. Jake and Lyra stood facing each other in the center of the room. All the aliens formed a circle around them. Jake could hear some of them placing bets on how quickly Lyra would lose. Begin, Judge Kexvar announced. Lyra closed her eyes and hesitantly reached out with her mind. Jake felt her gentle touch in his thoughts. She was being as careful as possible, trying not to hurt him but also trying to look like she was fighting. Jake could feel her fear and pain. Even this gentle contact was hurting her because she expected it to be a battle. Her mind was prepared for violence and domination. So Jake did something no one expected. Instead of fighting back or trying to defend himself, he opened his mind completely. Not just to Lyra, but to every memory, every feeling, every thought he had ever had. And then he began to share. He shared his childhood memories of playing with other children, learning to share toys and take turns. He shared memories of his training at the Space Academy, where he learned that a good leader serves his people, not the other way around. He shared memories of his crew, not just the good times but the hard times too, times when they had disagreed or made mistakes or been afraid, but in every memory they had worked together to solve problems. Lyra gasped out loud. The contact didn't hurt anymore because Jake's mind wasn't attacking hers. Instead, it was embracing hers, welcoming her, showing her things freely instead of hiding them. She began to see the history of humanity. Not just the good parts, but everything. She saw wars and cruelty and terrible mistakes. But she also saw how humans had learned from those mistakes. She saw them choosing to be better, choosing to help instead of hurt. She saw humans who had been enemies becoming friends. She saw people of different colors and cultures learning to work together. She saw a species that had overcome their worst instincts through patience, forgiveness, and the willingness to change. Then Lyra began to share her own memories. She showed Jake what it was like to grow up in a society where showing compassion was considered weakness. She showed him the pain of being constantly told she was defective because she couldn't hurt others without hurting herself. She shared her loneliness, her fear, her secret dreams of a world where people could be kind to each other without being called weak. The other aliens in the room were getting confused. The trial was supposed to be a quick, violent mental battle. Instead, Jake and Lyra stood perfectly still, their eyes closed, tears running down both their faces. What is happening? Demanded one of the betting aliens. I don't know, said another. This isn't how mental combat works. Morden stepped closer to the circle. His skin was flickering between different colors. They're cheating somehow. This isn't real combat. But Judge Kexvar held up his hand. I sense no deception. They are engaged in mental contact. The trial continues. Jake and Lyra's shared experience deepened. Lyra began to understand that her ability to feel others' pain wasn't a flaw in her telepathy. It was empathy, something her people had lost in their pursuit of mental dominance. Jake began to understand the incredible courage it took for Lyra to live in a society that hated her for her kindness. She was stronger than any of the Zephyrians who mocked her, because she had endured their cruelty without becoming cruel herself. Their minds touched deeper levels of connection. Lyra experienced what it felt like to be part of a human crew where everyone was valued. Jake experienced what it felt like to be alone in a crowd, rejected by your own people for refusing to hurt others. And then something beautiful happened. Jake felt Lyra's mind begin to heal. The pain and loneliness she had carried for years began to fade. For the first time in her life, she felt truly understood and accepted. At the same time, Lyra's gentle strength began to flow into Jake's mind. Her compassion, Her wisdom, her deep understanding of others' emotions made him feel more complete than he had ever felt before. They stood connected for several minutes. The room was completely silent. No one understood what they were seeing, but they could sense that something profound was happening. Finally, Jake and Lyra opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at each other with deep understanding and friendship. "The trial is over," Jake said to Judge Kexvar. "Who surrenders?" the judge asked. Jake smiled. "Neither of us." "That is impossible," Mordan shouted. "Someone must win. Someone must lose. That is how mental combat works." Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was stronger and clearer. The next 3 days were chaos. Word of the unusual trial of truth spread quickly through the galaxy. Ships arrived at Kepler 7 station from dozens of worlds. Everyone wanted to see the humans who had changed the rules of mental combat. Jake found himself giving the same explanation over and over again. "We didn't fight," he told a group of tree-like aliens from the Verdant Collective. "We shared. We tried to understand each other instead of defeating each other." "But how do you determine the winner if no one fights?" asked their leader, a being who looked like a walking oak tree. "Maybe," said Amy, who was standing nearby. "The real victory is when both sides learn something new." Meanwhile, Lyra was experiencing something she had never known before: respect from other aliens. Young Zephyrians sought her out privately, asking her to explain what had happened during the trial. They spoke in whispers, afraid to be overheard by their elders. "Is it true that mental contact doesn't have to hurt?" asked a young Zephyrian named Vex. His crystal skin was still growing, which meant he was barely an adult. "It's true," Lyra said. "When minds meet in friendship instead of conquest, there is no pain, only understanding. But how do we know who is stronger?" Vex asked. Lyra smiled. "What if being stronger isn't about making others weaker? What if being stronger means helping others become strong too?" Vex looked confused but interested. "Will you show me?" Before Lyra could answer, Counselor Mordan appeared. His crystal skin was dark with anger. "Enough," he declared. "You will not corrupt our young people with these dangerous ideas." "What's dangerous about them?" Lyra asked. She was standing straighter now, looking directly at Mordan without fear. "They undermine everything our civilization stands for," Mordan said. "Order, hierarchy, the proper relationship between the strong and the weak." "And what if our civilization is wrong?" Lyra asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Mordan's skin flickered between colors. "Our way has worked for thousands of years, has it?" Lyra asked. "We rule through fear. Our own people are afraid of us. Half our population lives in exile because they can't or won't participate in mental domination." "Is that really success?" Young Vex stepped forward. "Counselor, I've always felt sick when I try to dominate other minds. My teachers said I was weak and might be exiled. But what if that feeling means something else?" Mordan looked around and saw other young Zephyrians nodding. His carefully controlled world was falling apart. "This ends now," he declared. "I challenge the human captain to a real trial of truth. No tricks, no cooperation. True mental combat. When I defeat him, this nonsense will be over." Judge Kexvar, who had been watching from nearby, stepped forward. "Counselor, you cannot challenge someone who has already participated in a trial." "Then I challenge his second in command," Mordan said. Pointing at Amy, Amy looked at Jake. "I accept," she said calmly. "Amy, no," Jake said. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Amy said. "Someone needs to show him that what we demonstrated with Lyra wasn't a trick. It was real." An hour later, they were back in the main conference room. Even more aliens had arrived to watch. The betting was heavy against Amy. No non-telepathic species had ever survived a mental attack from a High Counselor. Amy and Mordan stood facing each other. Mordan's skin was glowing bright red with confidence and anger. Amy looked small next to him, but she was calm. "Begin," Judge Kexvar announced. Mordan immediately launched a massive telepathic attack. It was like a mental battering ram, designed to crush Amy's mind and force her into unconsciousness. But Amy was ready. Jake had taught her the technique they had discovered. Instead of resisting the attack, she absorbed it. She let Mordan see her thoughts, her memories, her feelings. Mordan expected to find fear or anger or the desire to fight back. Instead, he found something that stopped him cold: pity. Amy felt sorry for him. Through their mental connection, Amy showed Mordan what she saw when she looked at him. She saw someone who had spent his whole life believing that hurting others made him strong. She saw someone who was so afraid of appearing weak that he had forgotten how to be kind. She showed him memories of her own life. Times when she had been afraid, times when she had made mistakes, times when she had needed help. But in every memory there were people who had supported her, encouraged her, helped her become better. Mordan tried to push harder, to break through Amy's defenses with pure force. But Amy had no defenses to break. She was completely open, completely vulnerable, and somehow completely untouchable. "Fight back," Mordan shouted out loud. "Why won't you fight back?" "Because," Amy said gently, "I don't want to hurt you." Those words hit Mordan like a physical blow. In his entire life, no one had ever said they didn't want to hurt him. In Zephyrian culture, everyone always wanted to hurt everyone else. It was the natural order of things. Amy continued sharing her memories. She showed him teachers who had been patient with slow students. She showed him leaders who had admitted their mistakes and apologized. She showed him people choosing to forgive instead of taking revenge. "This is impossible," Mordan said, but his mental attack was weakening. "No species acts this way." "We do," Amy said. "We learned that causing pain doesn't make the pain inside you go away. It just creates more pain." Mordan's attack stopped completely. He stood there staring at Amy with confusion and something that might have been wonder. "What is the pain inside me?" he asked quietly. Amy's answer came not in words, but in a gentle touch of understanding. She showed him what she sensed in his mind, a deep, old loneliness. The loneliness of someone who had spent his whole life believing that strength meant being isolated from others. Mordan began to cry. It was shocking to see. High counselors didn't cry. They didn't show weakness, but as Amy's compassion flowed through their mental connection, years of suppressed emotions came pouring out. "I don't know how to be anything else," he said. "I don't know how to be strong without making others weak." "You can learn," Amy said. "We can teach you." The room was completely silent. Every alien present was witnessing something unprecedented. A high counselor of the Zephyrian Empire asking for help. Lyra stepped forward. "Counselor Mordan, may I say something?" Mordan looked at her. For the first time in his life, he really looked at her. Not as a superior looking down at an inferior, but as one person looking at another person. "Yes," he said. "You've been in pain for a long time," Lyra said. "We all have. Our whole civilization has been in pain. We've been so afraid of being weak that we've forgotten how to be happy." She gestured to the humans. "These people aren't stronger than us because they can dominate others. They're stronger than us because they've learned how to heal, how to help, how to make others feel better instead of worse." Young Vex spoke up from the crowd. "I want to learn that too." Another young Zephyrian stepped forward. "So do I." Soon dozens of young Zephyrians were pushing through the crowd, all saying they wanted to learn the human way of being strong. Judge Kexvar raised his staff for attention. "This trial has shown us something remarkable. The humans have demonstrated a form of strength that the Galactic Council has never seen before. I hereby declare them a species worthy of respect and full trading rights in this sector." The crowd erupted in cheers and arguments. Some aliens were excited by the new possibilities. Others were frightened by the challenge to their own beliefs about power and control. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Young Zephyrians began practicing the human style of mental contact. Instead of trying to dominate each other, they tried to understand each other. Instead of causing pain, they tried to heal it. The older Zephyrians were split. Some, like Mordan, slowly began to see the value in the human way. Others fought against it, insisting that the old ways were better. But change had begun and it couldn't be stopped. Lyra made a decision that shocked everyone, including herself. She asked to join the human crew as a permanent cultural ambassador. "Are you sure?" Jake asked her as they stood together on the observation deck of the UES Horizon. "You'd be leaving everything you've ever known." "I'm not leaving everything," Lyra said. "I'm taking the best parts with me and leaving the worst parts behind. Besides, someone needs to help build bridges between our species." Jake smiled. "I think you're exactly the right person for that job." They stood together looking out at the stars. Human and Zephyrian working together to build something better than either could create alone. "Captain," Lyra said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." When you first saw me, when you saw how the others treated me, why did you choose to be kind? You didn't know me. You had no reason to care. Jake thought about this. Where I come from, we have a saying. How you treat the least powerful person in the room shows who you really are. You weren't the most powerful person in that room, but you were the most honest. That made you the most valuable. Lyra's crystal skin glowed softly with happiness. Your species is very wise, Captain Morrison. We're learning, Jake said, just like everyone else. As the UES Horizon prepared to leave Kepler-7 station, messages came in from across the galaxy. Other species wanted to meet the humans. They wanted to learn about cooperation instead of domination. They wanted to know if there really was a different way to be strong. Amy was at her communications station, sorting through the requests. Captain,